What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex. You're watching a Marvel edition of the Ragin Nation show. This is just a web series where we talk about all things that matter to me in the world of Marvel films. This is episode number 15, and the first thing we're going to talk about is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And we're already gone through the second weekend of its release, and at the domestic box office, it looks like it got bumped down to the number 2 spot because Neighbors, the fraternity comedy with Zac Efron and Seth Rogen, took in $51 million, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 took in $37.2 million with a cumulative total of $147.9 million at the domestic box office. Now, it's not doing quite as well as The Amazing Spider-Man 1, but internationally, worldwide, it's doing really well. I mean, doing better than the first one, and also doing better than Captain America the Winter Soldier. Now, Captain America the Winter Soldier has some soaring positive reviews. I mean, I really love Captain America the Winter Soldier, but The Amazing Spider-Man 2, despite its mixed to negative reactions from fans, is still doing really, really well internationally. It looks like that The Amazing Spider-Man is, or at least seems to be, the more universally accepted superhero between the two, Captain America and Spider-Man. So, you know what? What's up with that? Anyways, so that's what I got to talk about with regards to The Amazing Spider-Man. Moving on, let's talk about that little end scene. That's that end, the mid-credits scene for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, they didn't have anything like the first Amazing Spider-Man where they had a bit of a teaser to the next film or the Sinister Six film. What they had instead is a teaser to X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, I already explained why a competing studio like Fox, 20th Century Fox, would be putting their scenes in a Sony production. But you know what? If you didn't stick around for the end credits to watch that scene, it is now online on YouTube. I'm going to leave you the link on the description box below for you to check out that clip. And it is essentially just a teaser to, or at least, you know, a sneak peek at X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, speaking of X-Men Days of Future Past, Fox Studios really have some huge optimism with regards to X-Men Days of Future Past. They are projecting a huge domestic box office opening weekend with $125 million on its opening weekend. That's what they project, making it the highest opening weekend for an X-Men film. There's already been, how many X-Men films have there been already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 X-Men films already, and the one with the highest opening is X-Men Last Stand, which wasn't very good, in my opinion. I mean, it was okay, but I don't think it was as great as the first two. X-Men The Last Stand took in $102 million. Fox Studios projects that X-Men Days of Future Past will take in $125 million. Now, the reason why I think that this one would be the best is because they combined the best of both worlds. They took in the best characters that everybody loved from the modern X-Men films, and they also took some of the best characters, or at least the characters from X-Men First Class, and they combined the two together, and you're bringing out an awesome story. And, you know, who doesn't love a time travel story? All right, so you know what? Looking pretty optimistic here. Now, one thing I got to talk about with regards to the positivity and optimism of the release of X-Men Days of Future Past is that a lot of people, or at least critics, have already screened it. I mean, or they've watched it already, and they've been tweeting about what they have to say with regards to X-Men Days of Future Past, and I want to share it with you guys. And let's start out with Humberto Gonzalez, and he said they should call X-Men Days of Future Past Days of Future Hotness. Take it from your boy Fanboy Nation. The movie's absolute fire. Boom. He also says, is it as good as The Winter Soldier, y'all ask? Well, mutants ain't my thing, and I'm a tad biased towards Cap, but yes, it's just as good. Wow. He also says, surprisingly, Quicksilver wasn't corny. Okay, now I've had a lot of given a lot of criticism about the look of Quicksilver, but I have seen some clips of Quicksilver in the TV spots. He looks cool. In fact, he looks like he's going to be the highlight of the film. Now, Steven Weintraub from Collider says X-Men Days of Future Past is great. film finds a way to make both casts work, and Quicksilver, wow, his main scene is the highlight of the film. He also says, and like all Marvel movies, make sure you still till the end of the X-Men Days of Future Past credits is definitely worth it. He also says, have to say was effing awesome to see the old and new X-Men cast in the same movie. Movie is 2 hours, 10 minutes. Wish it was longer. Wow, those are a lot of strong, positive words, especially about Quicksilver. Latino Review Kel tweets, saw X-Men Days of Future Past, and it was really good in my opinion. It's the best X-Men movie so far, but that's just me. It was like Avengers, but with mutants. He also says, one last thing about X-Men Days of Future Past, laugh all you want, but the Quicksilver scene was pretty awesome. That is all. Wow, a lot of praise for Quicksilver. Eric Wolkowski tweets, I'll say this about X-Men Days of Future Past. The third act is a hell of a good time, and Quicksilver is a big highlight. Wow, even more stuff, more good stuff to say about Quicksilver. Kevin McCarthy tweets, geeking out, saw X-Men Days of Future Past, mind officially blown. Insane emotion, action, every performance is awesome. Favorite X-Men flick. Sean O'Connell says, wow, Days of Future Past is the greatest, most complete, and staggeringly entertaining X-Men movie to date. Incredible movie of the summer. Wow. He also mentions McAvoy, Jackman, and Fassbender blew me away in X-Men. McAvoy is doing amazing things with Professor X. Best use of Wolvie in years. He also finally mentions, do you know what character is legit great in X-Men? Quicksilver. I'm not joking. He really works. Great scene. Whew, man. Quicksilver is the highlight. I mean, looks like everybody loves Quicksilver. Paul Selfin tweets, wow, Days of Future Past was so good. Definitely the best X-Men movie so far. And that's all you need to know. Go see it, X-Men. Alright? Finally, Shireen Sandoval loved X-Men Days of Future Past and loved me some mutants for the record. A bunch of hashtags. And last tweet is AJ Fry tweets, first I heard don't tweet, then later tweet only reactions. No spoilers. So I'll say this. It's basically the X-Men film I've always wanted. Really strong words with regards to how they feel about this film. Positively reviewed, and man, looks like the must-see event. Now, Bryan Singer, a long time ago, mentioned that he wanted to call X-Men Days of Future Past the Avengers of X-Men, because Avengers was just that good. Well, this is their version. This is their answer to the Avengers. Alright, so pretty awesome! Now let's talk about the next X-Men film. I mean, we haven't even seen X-Men Days of Future Past, but I want to talk about X-Men Apocalypse because Bryan Singer had an interview with Sci-Fi Now, and he talked a little bit about Apocalypse and what's going on with the X-Men Apocalypse, and that is with regards to the characters. He says that at this point for Apocalypse, they can do whatever they want with the characters. It doesn't matter that Cyclops and Jean Grey are dead from X-Men The Last Stand. It doesn't even matter if any of the characters from Days of Future Past died. Okay, I'm not saying that any of them died. I'm just saying that if they had died, it doesn't matter, because with time travel and X-Men Apocalypse being a follow-up to X-Men Days of Future Past, they can basically do whatever they want. In fact, in X-Men Apocalypse, they're going to answer the question of how the mutants came together. All right, so that is going to be very interesting. I'm very curious to see, of course, the X-Men Days of Future Past, and definitely, you know, the follow-up Apocalypse, because they're calling X-Men Apocalypse a direct follow-up to X-Men Days of Future Past. They're calling X-Men Days of Future Past kind of like an in-between-quel. It's not a sequel, not a prequel, but an in-between-quel. He made up that word. But anyways, it's an in-between-quel because it's time travel. It can be wherever it wants. But it is a direct follow-up. I mean, Apocalypse is a direct follow-up to Days of Future Past. Okay? Now, that's what I got to talk about that. Now, let's talk about another thing going on with 20th Century Fox, and that is in my recent, or in my in one of my other Marvel Edition updates, I mentioned that Hugh Jackman might hang up his claws after Days of Future Past, and he wasn't officially signed on for the Wolverine 2. Well, it looks like we got some news about that, because in an interview with X-Men film producer Lauren Schuller Donner and Hutch Parker, they actually mentioned that Hugh Jackman has been working very closely with James Mangold and they now have a story. The reason why Hugh Jackman wasn't completely confirmed about wanting to be in the Wolverine 2 was he wasn't sure if he didn't know if he wanted to do it unless they came up with a good story. Well, it looks like they have a good story, and he's on board, and it looks like they're also bringing him in for X-Men Apocalypse. Now, X-Men Apocalypse was originally about Professor X, Magneto, and a couple of other characters, but it didn't originally include Wolverine. But now they're saying that Wolverine is going to have a part in X-Men Apocalypse. Now, they didn't mention if it's going to be a small part or a big part, but he does have a part. And now with X-Men Apocalypse coming in 2017, or rather, X-Men Apocalypse coming in 2016 and the Wolverine 2 coming in 2017, that means that they're going to have to shoot the film back to back. Now, the reason why they have to do that is not just because of the time constraint, but it's also because of Hugh Jackman's training. He's got to maintain the same physique to play Wolverine. You know, you don't want some of that inconsistency. So they all tie in together. You know, a lot of people see it as a spin-off, like it's separate from the X-Men films, but actually they do tie in because X-Men Days of Future Past happens directly after the Wolverine that we just saw last summer, right? So there we have it. That's what's happening with 20th Century Fox. The last thing I want to talk about is going back to Disney and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Disney CEO Bob Iger expressed his enthusiasm for the Marvel series, and he mentioned that Guardians of the Galaxy could be a potential franchise. Iron Man is quite the franchise. You got Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, and possibly 4 in 2020. Well, they're saying that Guardians of the Galaxy could be a potential franchise. Now, of course, this all depends on how it does in the box office. This is going to be a huge gamble because Guardians of the Galaxy, while it does have its fan base, it's not as recognizable as like iconic characters like Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Captain America. You know what I'm saying? These are like the original characters that people read about, right? Guardians of the Galaxy came much later, but you know what? If it's a success and a lot of people like it, they're going to make a sequel, all right? But currently, there's no plans for that because they already have their whole Marvel Cinematic Universe schedule all mapped out. Like they know which characters they're going to be throwing into the mix later on. But so far, there's no plans for Guardians of the Galaxy. But they could change things up. They could change up their schedule. And anyways, that's all I got to say in this video. I've talked about a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff about X-Men Days of Future Past, which I'm really excited to watch because all those positive reviews really got me excited. So there you have it. That's all I got to say in this video. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter at Ragin Nation. My name is Alex and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. The most notable thing about this is, well, let's just say this, okay? It feels like it's a cross, or rather a hybrid between the Arkham Asylum